Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our final presentation of day one of the Body-worn camera PIP annual meeting. My name is Allie Land, and I'm the Deputy Project Manager working with BJA's Body-worn Camera Training and Technical Assistance Program. As a reminder, points of view or opinions expressed herein do not necessarily represent the official position or policies of the U.S. Department of Justice. And I will now pass it off to Dr. Michael White from Arizona State University to begin the session promoting constitutional policing through the use of body-worn camera footage. Mike?
Thanks, Allie, and thanks everyone for joining us. We're almost there. Last session for day one. So I just want to offer a couple of brief introductory remarks, and then do some quick introductions, and then we'll get rolling on this session. 2 points I wanted to raise to set the stage for this session. The first is that if you remember early this morning when John Markovic was talking about this program, he said that this year there's or I guess last year, there is a new or alternative grant mechanism. And so you have the traditional grants, which many of you got, which simply are, you get grants to deploy or expand your body-worn cameras. But there are what we call category 3, 4, and 5, which are opportunities for agencies to explore important issues at a much deeper level. And one of those issues is constitutional policing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to hear from representatives of 2 of the 3 agencies that have gotten these category 5 grants. The other point I wanted to raise about kind of background and setting the stage is that, most of us are very aware of the fact that every day law enforcement agencies are ingesting just a huge amount of body-worn camera footage into their department, and that footage has tremendous value. It offers really amazing insights into what's happening out on the streets in interactions between police officers and community members. It gives us insights into what your officers are saying and doing, what community members are saying and doing. And we're not just talking about the small percentage, the 2% or so that involve use of force. This is the entire universe of police community and member encounters that occur. And as I said, that footage has tremendous value for the department, for the community, for everyone, really. And this particular grant stream, the category 5, which is focused on the intersection of this footage and constitutional policing, really is all about police departments trying to harness the value of all of that footage in a way that promotes constitutional policing. So I guess we should first start by saying, what the heck do we mean by constitutional policing? Well, that is policing that is fair, that's just, that's lawful, that's effective, that's aligned with constitutional standards. And if we think about ways that footage from body-worn cameras can be used to promote that, we're going to hear about some ideas that agencies have. That includes, using footage to think about de-escalation tactics or procedural justice, or using footage to enhance training, whether that be training for new recruits in the academy or FTOs or even advanced or in-service training. So as I said, we've got representatives from 2 of the agencies that have gotten grants to explore this issue of constitutional policing. That's Rochester and LAPD. We have Adrian Martin from the Rochester Police Department with us. From LAPD, we have Sergeant Clarence Mejia and Captain Christopher Zine, both of whom are going to talk specifically about their grant programs and what they're trying to achieve in this space of constitutional policing. We're also very lucky to have with us Arif Ali Khan, who I had Arif speak to my students in class once, and just to listen to his bio is eye-opening. He's had a number of positions in local and federal law enforcement agencies that have had him thinking about these issues for a long time. Most notably is a deputy commissioner in the Office of Constitutional Policing for the LAPD. So what we're going to do in terms of organization, Adrian and the folks at LAPD are going to take about 15 or 10 minutes or so to talk about their particular programs. And then we're going to turn to Arif and get his thoughts, both about what he's heard with regard to these programs, but just generally. And then I may have some questions. I'm sure we'll have some other questions from the audience that we can get to. So with that, I'm gonna stop talking, and I'll turn it over to Captain Zine and Sergeant Mejia, who are going to get us started talking about their program. Then we'll go to Adrian and then to RF. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our colleagues at LAPD.
All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the invitation to be here today. I'm Captain Christopher Zine, the Commanding Officer of Training Division for the LAPD. In that role, I'm also the Director for the Los Angeles Police Academy for the educational component of the Academy. And with me today is Sergeant Clarence Mejia, who co-authored this grant, and he's also our post-compliance officer to make sure that we're in line with the expectations for the state of California in regards to our Academy training.
I was just going to give you a little bit of a historical rundown of our Academy training. So back in 2006, we began our Police Academy redesign project. So we wanted to develop an academy, basically shifting away from lecture-based to more adult learning concepts. Because that we know that when our students are actively involved, they learn more and they also retain more. So we partnered with the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, who fully supported us on this project. And in 2008, we launched our new academy format. So as we redesigned our academy training, we wanted to keep a few things in mind. So number one, it's like, well, what kind of recruit do we want graduating from the academy? So we want that person to have a strong retention, right, in the foundational concepts of academy training, with the ability to process information and make sound critical decisions. And we also want them to perform in a confident and professional manner. We also want them to be adaptable to the changing political, community, and legal environment where they will work, more so today. So we address this by building community engagement, partnership, and transparency early in the academy. We have an extensive curriculum on LAPD history and how it impacted our relationship with the community, both negative as well as positive. We implemented constitutional policing and procedural justice concepts before they even became required in academy training. And we also have a strong community engagement curriculum. So not only do we teach the community engagement concepts, but our recruits, before they graduate the academy, get to apply them by participating in a live community forum where community members are brought in to engage with our recruit officers. And we really want them to be active participants in the department's community engagement efforts. So as we train our recruit personnel, we basically utilize adult learning concepts that focuses on the whole person. So the three parts that we focus on are our belief system, so our mission, vision, values, our problem solving or our cognitive skills, as well as our tactical concepts, or our psychomotor skills. And at any given situation, all three sides are incorporated. So for instance, an officer is involved in a use of force. So we, of course, want them to be proficient in those tactical concepts, but then we also want them to be, to consider our mission, vision, values, such as our guiding principle of reverence for human life, as well as develop other possible options, through their problem solving. As you guys know, there are hundreds of topics that are taught in the academy, but we primarily focus our problem-based learning in these general topic areas, so such as leadership, ethics, and professionalism, legal authorities and constitutional policing, use of force and de-escalation. And I can go on, but I think you guys are able to read the list. And we believe that by focusing on these general topic areas, that gives us the greatest training impact, particularly when we're limited on time in academy training. In 2017, so as the department began to transition to body-worn video, we began teaching the body-worn video policy in our recruit training. And then it was in 2019 as well as 2020 when we were really able to elevate our academy training by implementing a live body-worn video system into the academy. So today, each recruit is issued a body-worn camera device where they're able to record body-worn footage when they're actively involved in scenario training. And then at some point in the class, they actually get to view their body-worn video from a first-hand or first-person perspective. So they get to see how they performed in real life later on through a debrief.
So when we looked for grants, this grant was really tailor-made for our academy. We're a scenario problem-based academy. So we offer hands-on approach to training. We practice job-related skills in a simulated field environment. We learn by watching others negotiate the problem and then putting the recruits through those same problems repeatedly. We also try to have a higher retention of training concepts. And what we found is that the scenario-based training does offer that. But again, with the scenario-based training, it's important to remember that that's conducted in a sterile environment. In regards to the policy implementation and the objectives, our goal is to enhance and expand the LAPD's training curriculum and the LAPD Academy to integrate body-worn video footage to exemplify the best practices of law enforcement. And that's different generally because most departments would show the negatives, and we're taking a different approach to try to reinforce the positive behavior. And then secondly, we want to identify the best practices of this proposed training enhancement in order to replicate it as a nationwide standard in law enforcement training. And just to also follow up on that, I've received several calls from other academy directors in California. They're extremely excited to see how this grant's going to progress, and we're going to share that information at the conclusion of the grant. So additionally, we're going to integrate, what we do is we integrate existing scenario training, problem-based training with the body-worn video footage of actual law enforcement contacts. And again, the goal is to enhance the knowledge and skills of our recruit officers in the academy. And we're also trying to reinforce the basic academy concepts by seeing those good examples of good field contacts, those positive examples. And another aspect of this that we've seen, especially with this generation of police officers, our new officers, is that they're more so visual learners than anything else. And again, we think we're going to have great success with that. In regards to our basic instructional formula, so we do our instruction, we do our scenario training, we conduct our debriefs. So again, with this grant, we're going to incorporate watching the body-worn video, and then we're going to redo scenarios again, mastery scenarios. In regards to the instructional phase, that's going to be lecture facilitation. We'll conduct case studies, tabletop exercises. We also do small, large group discussions. For scenarios and practical application, we provide the recruits with an opportunity to practice the scenarios. Also, it gives the recruits an opportunity to watch and learn other recruit officers negotiating and working their way through that problem-solving process. Following that, we conduct the debrief. The goal of the debrief is to enhance the understanding of the different perspectives of handling those incidents. We really stress the officer safety, the tactical considerations. We also talk about the application of law and constitutional policing concepts, the quality of the investigations, the quality of the contact, and the use of procedural justice concepts, the effects of the department's community engagement efforts, the decision-making factors and options that a recruit officer will have in the field as a police officer. And finally, we talk about the disposition of radio calls or those contacts with the community and other documentation requirements. So again, with this grant, we'll be able to do field-generated body-worn video footage. We're going to incorporate that into the academy. So we'll be able to show the recruit officers and be able to compare and contrast between an academy training scenario and what an actual field response from police officers in the field will look like. Also, we'll be able to be consistent and reinforce our academy concepts by watching these body-worn video footages. And we also remind our recruits that in the academy setting, again, it's a sterile environment. There'll be a difference in regards to real-life scenarios, but we try to give them as much exposure as possible. And then the last step is going to be the mastery through additional scenarios. And we're excited to see the progression of the recruit officers after watching those good examples, those exemplary examples of police officers with those positive contacts. And we're going to put the recruits through additional scenarios at the conclusion. So in regards to the policy and implementation of this, we're right now in the developmental stage. So we've created our working groups. We've also identified our subject matter experts. And now we're starting to establish our performance measures. It's important to note that while we might have received this grant a year ago, it was only in July that we received the funding for the grant after it was approved by the City Council in Los Angeles. Next will be the implementation phase. We're going to integrate the body-worn video footage into our lesson plans. And we're also going to conduct class sequencing, and we're going to conduct a rollout program. And that's going to consist of utilizing one of our academy classes. We do run an academy class every month. So again, every month we start a new academy class. So we'll pick probably one of our junior classes and have them be our pilot for this program. And then lastly, we're going to do our assessment. We're going to gather all the data. We'll identify the lessons learned. We're going to identify the best practices. And our goal again is to share that results of our implementation and hopefully make academy training better, not just in our department, but throughout the state of California and national.
Well, thanks to you both. And just a reminder to attendees, feel free to use that chat function to write any questions you might have, and we should have time at the end to get through those. I think at this point, though, I don't see any questions, so we'll just keep pushing forward, and we'll turn it over to Adrian from the Rochester Police Department.
All right, thanks. So I'm a data analyst from the Rochester Police Department. That's Rochester, New York. Yeah, so the presentation is using body-worn camera footage for training and improvement in constitutional policing. This is actually a joint project with the Rochester Police Department and the Rochester Institute of Technology, which is a research university just south of Rochester in Henrietta. And so the basic idea is we are going to take the tremendous amount of video that we have. We have well over 5,000 days of footage saved. And we're going to use that to both do routine compliance auditing, but also, the exciting part is to learn from all that data, to learn from the thousands and thousands of hours of footage that we have available to us. This grant kind of builds upon a prior grant that RPD and RIT jointly got together from the COPS office of DOJ. That was natural language processing on police use of force written reports. And so now what we hope to do as part of this grant is we hope to join up those written reports, those written use of force reports with the body-worn camera footage of uses of force. But also really there's, about 4 prongs of this project that we're hopeful that we can get success on. So this is kind of the basic overview of the project. So we have all this body-worn camera footage, 5,000 days. We make about 3 or 4 days of footage, new footage every day. It's too much for our own local computers to be able to analyze. So we need to use RIT's high performance computing cluster, which has thousands of CPUs, it has something like 50 terabytes of RAM. It's a legit supercomputer that they use for physics research, cutting edge physics research and stuff. So we move all the data over to RIT, keeping everything encrypted on the way, et cetera. And then we'll build machine learning algorithms over at RIT. And we're going to be using actually 2 professors, Professor Fuqua, Ernest Fuqua, and he's going to be selecting a graduate student to assist him. And then also we're going to be working with John McCluskey. He's a criminal justice professor. He'll be working more on the coding aspect. And Professor Fuqua is a hard science math guy. So they're going to be helping build these machine learning algorithms. And we're going to be doing things like transcribing the audio, using computer vision algorithms to try to recognize, for instance, the presence of firearms, the involvement of vehicles, that sort of thing. Then with those algorithms, once they're built at RIT, the hope is we'll be able to move those algorithms back to the City of Rochester's servers where we can create a pipeline. So for instance, in the first slide, we talked about creating a machine learning pipeline that can help us in routine compliance auditing and learning. So the idea is that as we create new body-worn camera footage, we can run that footage through the algorithms that are living on our own servers that we built using the supercomputer over at RIT. And we'll be able to use those algorithms hopefully for our due diligence, but also for training assistance, just learning about trends. And then through the feature extraction that leads to those algorithms, we'll be able to build descriptive data sets that we can also put on our website and help inform the public and help hopefully build context around whatever viral video happens to be going around that day. So in terms of the deliverables we hope to be able to achieve. We want to be looking at things like trend analysis of patterns of de-escalation. So, for instance, we can look at finding incidents in which the kind of emotional content of the event is going up, and then it goes down. And we want to find officers who are disproportionately present in these incidents where we're bringing things down and cooling things off. We plan on essentially, once we've built out all these features of these different incidents, we can try to pair them up. So we can say, all right, computer, tell us, of all these thousands of incidents, find pairs that are very similar. And then within those pairs, we're going to find incidents in which one led to use of force and one didn't. This is going to be our pair and compare project. And then we'll bring in officers to view the body-worn camera footage and read the reports from those incidents and ask those officers to try to help us figure out, why did one go south and why did one not go south? Is there anything beyond, the subject behavior? Beyond that, is there anything that we can learn from these two incidents apparently being very similar but having divergent outcomes? We hope to kind of be able to build a library available to the academy so that when academy teachers, say today we're going to be learning about X type of event, for instance, today we'll learn about dealing with a traffic stop in which there's a legal firearm. Let's pull up body-worn camera footage from the last traffic stop with a legal firearm, which happened, a mile and a half down the road. That I think will really help, engage students. And then, of course, when we build algorithms that view all of our footage, the public kind of expects us, well, if we're cataloging everything, you're obviously doing compliance auditing too, right? So we'll do compliance auditing, of course, as well. So, for instance, we hope to be able to say we reviewed 5,000 days of video footage and looking for unreported uses of force, and we hope to be able to say that we found no unreported uses of force. And then finally, creating the publicly available data sets. And what those data sets look like, that really depends on the degree of success we have in all of our feature extraction and finding different ways to catalog our video. So that's the overview of the project. Currently, we are awaiting signing the data sharing memorandums between RIT and the City of Rochester. We have kind of on top of this, last week was our soft go live for changing over our entire body-worn camera provider system. So that just kind of adds another degree of complexity to the whole project, but we hope to be able to, report some progress in a year or so.
Great. Thanks, Adrian. Two quick points before I turn it over to RF. So very clearly different projects, yet the focus really begins at the same place, which is this idea of constitutional policing and like I said, harnessing the value of footage to achieve those goals. So with the LAPD program, it's really focused on academy training, so training for recruits and using footage to enhance the scenario-based training that's being conducted there. The Rochester program, very, very different, super advanced in terms of the technological aspects of it, natural language processing, identifying specific types of videos, and even identifying top de-escalators based on the analysis of those videos. So very, very different, but I think both very fascinating in terms of what they're doing and where they are. I'm gonna turn it over to RF, and I think we have at least one question we can get to after that, but let's kick it to RF.
Well, thanks, Mike, and thanks to everybody, and good afternoon. Great to be here again virtually and see so many familiar faces. And many of us who've gone on this long journey of body-worn cameras since it first started becoming a major effort when we were going from just how are we going to deploy them? What are the policies going to be? How are we going to collect the evidence? And has evolved into many more things, including how we're going to analyze it, how we're going to release the videos to the public, to how we're going to look at the data, as you've seen with what Rochester's doing, and then what LAPD is doing, and then actually incorporating it into training, which is a great evolution of a very important technology. I think it's important just to orient, in my kind of focus areas on constitutional policing. And Mike, you mentioned sort of some of the things that are an important component of that. But the real focus, I think, and the way I try to frame constitutional policing is it's about how the Constitution, which is what every officer swears an oath to protect and defend, really defines the purpose of policing, which is to pursue justice and to protect people from harm. And how the functions that we expect in a democracy of a government agency being transparent and holding people accountable is a very, very important part of that social compact that's required under the Constitution. Body-worn cameras serve a very important role there. First, in terms of pursuing justice, it's tremendous evidence of criminal conduct of suspects. And just like in-car video and other technologies is such a critical part of pursuing justice in court against people who've committed crimes. And I'm sure all the prosecutors here can attest to how powerful that is. But it's also important in just in terms of protecting the public, in large part because of what we can learn from it. And that's what's so great to see with many departments that are starting to use the video, not just as something to look at, but actually see what can we learn and how can we improve performance on that. The thing that I think is very important, though, as you think about this journey, is that whether it's about training, whether it's about a critical incident briefing or any analysis, how important it is to have the full context of what you're seeing in the video. I often say that watching a body-worn video is like watching a baseball game through a straw. You can watch the pitcher throw a fastball, but was it the right pitch? Who knows? It all depends on who's at bat, what's the count, is somebody on, what's the score, who are you even playing? There's very little you can determine just by looking at the body worn itself. Now, fortunately, I think something that's become a very important training tool and on the issues of constitutional policing has been the way departments are now releasing video. I heard Craig Yoshida earlier talk about sort of the LAPD experience. I was there when we were trying to develop how we were going to release body-worn video. And it was something of significant concern to me because I knew from my prosecutorial background that if you don't provide sufficient information, people will make snap judgments based on a small snippet of video. And so from that, it was very important to learn what other places were doing. And Las Vegas Metro kind of inspired the process that Craig had mentioned, which is which was to provide more context. Now they do it by having a press conference. LAPD, unfortunately, we have numerous incidents a month where that was not feasible. So we produced the videos known as the critical incident community briefings, which set up the full context. So when you're watching the video, you understand what you're seeing. And that's become a very important part of not just how we inform the public, but has actually become a very important training tool, which is something I had not realized would be the case before. So why is that important? Because when we were releasing those, yes, it was important to inform the public about that, but the number of officers at the LAPD and other departments who would watch those videos to, one, learn what happened, but also learn about things that they should or should not do. And it's often used in our roll calls to discuss once these videos are put out. And it's not just the snippet, but it's the full context, which could include what the 911 call was, what the radio transmissions were, what different angles, an overview, those kinds of things, which are so important. And it's from that I think is important to remember. And however you're going to use body worn, whether it's for release, training, analysis, or making a review and adjudication, understanding the full context is important. I also know that the debate continues about how videos should be released. Aside from training, but just to the community. Some advocate, well, you should just release the raw video. Others advocate, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, I've made the argument, and I can send the link to an article I wrote about this. It's about I believe there's a constitutional obligation to fully inform the public. And that requires that when you're releasing information, you have to release the full context of it. And that's impossible by just releasing raw footage. We would never just take crime scene photos and just release them. We would say what they are, what the context is. We would want to be, because the obligation is not to just release information. The obligation is to inform the public. And that's very important, especially in the context of a use of force, because the public deserves to know what happened for sure, but they also deserve to know why it happened. And why it happened takes a lot more information than just watching the video through the vision and the straw that we do just as human beings. And so that's also true because the law, whether an officer's use of force is reasonable is based on the totality of the circumstances. That is the legal standard. That is the legal standard. An officer will be judged in terms of his or her decisions that they made and the use of force by their agency. And it's also an obligation to provide that information to the public. So if they draw a judgment, that they're doing so to determine whether the officer's actions were reasonable and met the constitutional standards that are not only the obligation of a police department, but the expectation from the public. I just want to say one other thing that's, I think, very important, and it's great to hear about the partnership between Rochester and RAT and Rochester PD. And I know from the experience I've had both at the LAPD and many other agencies I'm working with, the ability to partner with academic researchers like yourself, Mike, with Arizona State, with Chuck Katz and many others, Craig Yoshida is an example of how working with partners is so important for agencies, because having that ability to analyze, to do rigorous research, to come up with things and insights and aspects that can help us use this incredibly valuable data and video is, I think, really has been a game changer for a lot of agencies. And it's great to see the partnership that DOJ has enabled with that and that constant evolution. It's those partnerships of analysis, it's that partnership that enables departments to really learn what they can, because they just don't have, even the largest departments like LA, Chicago, New York, they just don't have the capability and the expertise to be able to do that in a meaningful way, and also in a way that could help other departments benefit from that type of research. So I think it's great that that evolution and that partnership has continued. And I think it's very important to any of the projects that an agency is thinking about, whether it's about releasing video, whether it's about using for training, or whether it's just how you're going to analyze, review, and adjudicate various incidents and in the process of holding officers accountable. So I will pause there and happy to take any questions or any comments. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Arif. I should mention, so we have representatives from two of the agencies that received this kind of grant, the Category 5 focused on constitutional policing, obviously Rochester and LAPD. There is one other agency. We've got them occupied on other sessions in the upcoming days. So we didn't want to have them on this one as well. But that other agency is the New York City Department of Homeless Services Police Department. And their project actually is quite a bit similar to the LAPD's program in terms of identifying footage and then integrating that footage into academy training in a way that can enhance the training experience. So I'm looking for questions from the audience. We have one, and then I've got a couple others I can ask if we don't have anything else come in. But for our colleagues at the LAPD, there was a question about the selection of videos that you will eventually use in the academy training. So if you could just, either Captain Zine or Sergeant May, talk a little bit about the plan that you have in place to identify the videos that you want to use, and then also specifically what areas of the curriculum have you targeted to do this first?
Want to do it or not?
I'll start. So in regards to the criteria we're looking for those complex incidents, the incidents that, especially for a new police officer, that might overwhelm a police officer. So we're trying to find those incidents, specifically that it's going to be the detentions. And we're trying to identify the scenarios where, again, we're looking for those positives, the aspects of de-escalation that are in those scenarios. keeping in mind constitutional policing, those incidents where the officer has the opportunity to explain to the individual the reason for the detention, the reason for the search, to try to, again, further enhance the verbalization.
Right, and also some of those scenarios that exemplify procedural justice and really enhance our community engagement efforts.
The question I wanted to ask Adrian about the Rochester program, you mentioned public release of data toward the end of your discussion. Could you talk a bit more about what the plans are with regard to that, and also just about community engagement generally with the project that you have going?
Yeah, sure. So for the old grant, the COP grant, where once the write-up is released, which I think is going to happen in November, we're also releasing the data set of the 5,000 or so use of force reports that we analyzed. And the data set for there will be basically one row per incident, and it'll have a bunch of different features. For instance, the size of the officers and size of the subject, and the use of force techniques used, et cetera, et cetera. And so our plan with this grant is to kind of mimic that. So we're not releasing the video, all right? We're not releasing 5,000 days of video. We're planning on releasing data that can help describe the video in the aggregate. So for instance, a firearm was seen on the video, yes or no. The video occurred inside or outside. The video, or both. The video involved the use of force, yes or no. The video involved a traffic stop, yes or no. A lot. And it depends on which of these features we're able to train an algorithm to pick up out of the video or out of the audio. So, but that's the idea, is that we can release data that helps, academics or reporters or whoever really provide a context for the next video. The idea is not that, some random person is going to be downloading data and doing analysis. The idea is that reporters and academics will be able to use this data to help really to show the random person staying at home what's going on. And also, I want to talk a little more about the partnership with RIT. So, our RPD's partnership with RIT has gone on like at least 15 years now, and it started with the New York State Department of Division of Criminal Justice Services helping set up crime analysis centers, and using RIT as kind of a contractor, and using RIT to basically as a source of talent for those crime analysis centers. And then as the crime analysis centers grew, the crime analysis centers started doing more and more advanced projects, and then that split to kind of having a tactical center and then a more strategic analysis center. And that kind of strategic analysis center is what is that's where these Department of Justice grants are living. And so really the benefit is that RIT has this, like world-class talent in both criminal justice and statistical machine learning. And, at RPD, we have the data. So we're marrying the data with the expertise. And that's really the idea behind the partnership.
Great, thanks, Adrian. A question for Arif. Hypothetically, you're having an introductory meeting with a police department, and they say to you that they want to optimize the footage that they have to improve their officers' behavior. They want to enhance constitutional policing, something along those lines. And then they ask you, what should we be concerned about as we go down this road? What kind of caveats should we be thinking about? Is there anything that kind of pops into your head in terms of what you might say to kind of words of caution as a department goes down that road with, here they've got this enormous amount of footage that they're going to try to then tap into to kind of pull out these lessons to enhance procedural justice and other issues that'll kind of march them down that road toward constitutional policing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and an important one, because oftentimes departments, they have this pile of digital data, and then they say, well, we better start checking it. And oftentimes they don't have a process or a system to do that. They will say they conduct a random check, which is basically maybe a sergeant at the end of their watch is kind of like, picking the shortest videos, or just kind of punching through a few things. And those are things that, potentially you could find something both good or bad. But the reality is you have to think of what that system is. And you want to make sure you have some clear expectations so the officers know how the video is going to be used. The trust of the officers in the technology and how it's going to be used is critically important for all of the issues that were talked about before, about activation, about how it's used, when it's turned off, all of those things. And so looking at it and trying to either do a quality control or even a formal audit, that process is really important. Because you have to think about, okay, you're going to do a review. Now you see something. Now what? And oftentimes departments don't think about, well, what do we do then? Is it, at what point does it become a formal investigation? What point do you just tell the officer? What point do you bring them in? Thinking through all of those things is very important, because it's not as simple as just, okay, we should review a few of them. Just one little anecdote. There was one department I worked with, they were requiring their watch commanders to watch videos randomly, and they would select the videos to watch. Well, it was no surprise that the ones they selected to watch were the shortest ones that they could find, because they were so strapped with so much other work to do. Would that qualify as a good quality control or just checking on things? Probably not. And also, just one other thing too, oftentimes when we look at, okay, you want to review video to make sure that everything's going well and that officers are behaving appropriately, and maybe there's opportunities to learn. You also don't want to do that in one bucket, in one method. Some places say, well, we have an audit unit and that's how we do it. Well, there are always opportunities to review video and identify things, especially if the officers do it. But at the LAPD, for example, we would always get a question, well, how are you looking at all the video? And we had different systems to do that. Every use was going to be examined by a sergeant. Every critical incident was going to be reviewed by many people. But every vehicle pursuit, we're looking at the video. There were many different ways, in addition to review units in the bureaus, and then a formal audit division that would go through and do a stratified sampling, et cetera. You have to have these review systems to find things and to see things and figure out how do you make performance better, but think through the system, think of the steps after it. It's not just a matter of, periodically reviewing a few.
Thanks, Aros. I just want to thank our presenters for offering their thoughts on their programs and this very important issue of harnessing the value that's in that footage to help achieve some of the things that are at the core of the police mission.